Well, I want to welcome you to our year-end webinar. My name is Terry Hatmaker, and I'll be presenting today. Also with me are Chris Widener from our marketing department and our CEO, Alex Clay. Well, what we're going to look at first is we're going to be looking at how to generate giving statements in CDM Plus. In order to do that, we need to first look at some of the setup that's necessary to ensure that it's ready, your donors are ready for their giving statements. Next, we'll go over the process of printing those giving statements so you can mail them to your donors. Then we'll look at how to generate online giving statements so that they'll be available to your donors. And finally, we'll answer your questions. So first, let's take a look at what steps you should take before generating or printing a statement. First of all, you should ensure all your donations are current. And that means that you need to be able to go through your data, make sure that you have all of your donations into the system. Next, you need to look at your donor records, and if you have any duplicates, you need to merge them. And finally, you need to check your donor setups, making sure that your donors are set up to receive statements. We're going to look at each of these areas in a little bit of detail. And then after that, we'll get into the actual generating and printing of a giving statement. So let's first look at making sure all of your donations are current. So you want to first make sure that you've entered all the donations into CDM Plus, even those that you need to manually input. Next, you need to make sure that any of the guest donations that you're receiving are being processed through the Process Pending Donations window. So you'll need to go into that window and process them so that those gifts that were given as guests online are now in the CDM Plus donation records window. You can learn more about this process in our Help Center. Next, you want to look at your donor records. Like I said earlier, you want to look and see, are there any duplicate donor records? If there are, you'll want to merge those records so that your donors won't be receiving multiple statements. You can learn more about merging records in our Help Center. And then finally, you want to make sure that your donors are set up to receive statements. Here I've got a window, the donor records window. Down in this area here, you have some check boxes: does not receive statement, email statement, and inactive. Your donors should not have does not receive statement checked if they're going to receive a statement. If they're going to receive a statement, you need to also make sure that the inactive is not set. And there may be some of your donors, if not all, that you may want to email a statement to. And so you'll want to make sure that check email statement is selected. What we're going to do is we're going to go over into CDM Plus now, and we're going to open up the donor records window, and we're going to take a more detailed look at that process. Okay, so here we are, we're in the donor records window, and you can see here's that area down in the bottom portion of the window for this record. What I've done is I'm listing all the donor records in this database. I've also added a few columns to my results list. I can see a last donation date, but here are the three check boxes I was talking about in the donor record down here: does not receive statement, email statement, and inactive. So here you could go through and you can sort these columns by just clicking on the header here. And when I do, I can see which records do not have a statement. Now, I'm looking at all the donations, so there are going to be donations from years outside of 2022. In order to limit this and filter this to only see 2022 giving, I'm going to come over into Find. And I'm going to find the last donation date. And I'm going to set this to is greater than or equal to, and then I'm going to put 1/1/2022. And I've set this column to show me anybody who has the does not receive statement checkbox checked. So it comes, you see right up here that anonymous is checked to not receive a statement. And that's because we don't want this particular giving statement to receive a statement. However, there could be ones that are marked here that you don't want that marked as yes. And it's at this point would be the best time to find that and just go in, click on that particular donor, click on change, and then you can come in here and uncheck that checkbox. Also, from an email statement perspective, any of the, like I said earlier, any donors that you want to receive email, you would want to come in and put a check there for email statement. As you can see, if I sort this by email statements, I have a number of records here who are going to receive email statements. And finally, you want to make sure about inactive records. I look down through here and I see that all of these are showing as active. However, this tag right here is saying this results list is being filtered. If I click on that, it now says it's unfiltered, and you can see that the records were being filtered to not show any inactive donors. So I found that there is an inactive donor who had a last donation within 2022. So here I need to come in and click on change, uncheck inactive, and then click on save. Once you've gone through your donor records and you feel that you've set these up properly and everything, you are now ready to go to the next step, and that is to print or generate online statements. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at printing our statements out to a printer or PDF. So we come back to our Welcome to CDM Plus window and we click on Print Statements. This opens our Print Statements window. You want to set your date range to donation date, and you want to use the calendar year of 2022. You also want to make sure that the all radio buttons for both funds and payment types are selected. Then along our left-hand sidebar, you want to click on the first option under Report. Here, you can choose the sort order that you wish to use. You could do it by code or donor name or zip code. We have a lot of users that like to sort by zip code for mailing, but we're going to leave ours to sort alphabetically by donor name. In addition, you have donor options here, and this is where you can include some of those donors that you excluded from some of the processes in that setup window. For instance, you could include inactive donors here, or you could include those that marked does not receive statement, okay, rather than going through. It's best to make sure your data is set up properly so that your donors are set up to receive statements when you want them to receive those statements. In addition, you might have donors that you're going to send an email letting them know that their online giving statements are available. And if you want to print out any of those records, you'll need to make sure that you put a check in the Send Email button checkbox here. Otherwise, it's going to exclude printing out any statements for those donors that have received an email about their online giving statement. The next option down here is formatting. Here you can control what you see in your header and footer options. If you don't want to show search description, you can uncheck that. If you don't want to show any of the footer, the date stamps and those kinds of things, you can uncheck that. I'm going to leave that so you see how this looks. In addition, you can choose to print totals only rather than just showing each of the donations that your donor gave. And finally, we want to look under the messages section of options. Here, this is the giver message. Now, in stewardship, their tax receipts, there was a statement that was automatically included, and that was the no goods or services statement. In our software, we don't automatically put that in. We give the option for our users to be able to enter in whatever message they want. But so what that means is you'll need to make sure that you come in under messages, enter that statement for the no goods or services for the giver message, so that that'll be included on your statements. And you'll also need to do this in online giving statements, and we'll look at that here in a second. So now that we have this all set up, let's refresh our window here and see what this looks like. So what the program's doing now is it is printing the screen all of the statements that meet the criteria that we set up under search. And if we scroll down, you can see that there are a number of, there's going to be a number of these. Now, if we come down and we look at one of these here, let's look at what we get, what the donors are going to see when they receive this statement. In the upper portion here, you see the address for the organization as well as the donor. Our printed statements are set up to use double window number 10 envelopes. So you can set that up here. And if any adjustment is needed, that can be done under the alignment section. If we look down a little bit further, we get into the detail where each individual donation that was made is listed along with the breakdown of the funds. After the detail, you have a total section where it takes the funds that were given and lists out the totals for those funds. And then finally is your giver's message is at the end of the statement right here. Now, one of the things that you can do within this window that's very handy is you can see a list of all your pages here, so you can scroll through them much faster. Or you can also, with this button here that looks like a magnifying glass, if I click on that, I can type in my name and hit enter, and it will search all through your statements so that if you need to find an individual statement to look at it, it's much easier to do it this way than to go scrolling through looking at page by page. So once you feel comfortable with your giving statements, you can print them. Now, you can either print to screen or you can print to PDF. We recommend that you print to PDF, especially if you have hundreds of giving statements. The reason why anything could happen, you could lose power, you could lose internet, your printer could run out of paper and cause a problem. By printing it to PDF, there's two advantages. One, you have an electronic copy specifically of these giving statements that you can keep on your computer. And secondly, you can use the PDF software to print those statements and have a somewhat easier time of printing those out and not having to worry about anything, since you have already generated those PDFs of the statements. Now, what about being able to give access to your donors a PDF online? So we have an online giving, online statement feature in our software where you click on this, and the online statement option opens up to this window. This is the giving statement batch window. You can see we have no records here yet. And so the first thing you're going to have to do to be able to create online giving statements is you need to generate a giving statement batch. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this blue button here, generate giving statement batch. And this brings up a setup window where you can see we have our start date for the 2022 calendar year. We can also enter in the new no goods or services statement. And I'm just going to put ... just so we know that that no goods or services statement goes in this memo field. And then you can determine if you want to generate this for all your donors, a single donor, or a range of donors. So if you go and do a single donor, you can just go and find a specific donor code like that. If you're going to do a range of donors, you can select the one donor and you can just do a range of them this way. In our case, we're going to generate for all of our donors. And so we're going to select this radio button and we're going to click generate batch. All right, so now the batch has been generated. You can see we have a date that it was generated, our start and end dates, and the number of donors that are in this batch. As we scroll down through here, you can see that we have a number of columns, including the name, the number of donations that are part of a specific giving statement, because these are individual giving statements here. The total donations of that statement, when it was last viewed by the donor, and the status of the statements. And then you have a couple action buttons. So let's just take Mark Hunter, for instance. So right now, Mark Hunter's gift, as well as everyone else's, is unpublished. So what does that mean? What that means is his statement, even though we've generated it, is not available to him in Engage yet. What we need to do is we need to be able to publish all of these giving statements. Now, at this window, this is a point where you want to be able to go and just do a review of these statements here. When you're in an unpublished state, you can go back into CDM Plus and you can make changes to any of the donations that need correcting. But if you've published them, then you would not make it, you cannot make any changes to those donations after they're published, because when they are published, they are now available on your donor's Engage site. So how do I publish? Well, before I go there, let's look at a couple of these action buttons. And so this is one, so that you can understand how you're going to be able to know if everything's correct. So if I come down here and if I want to look at Alex and Abby Clay, I can click on View, and View brings up the donation record for them. You can see again, here is our addresses, the detail, and then the fund totals for each fund category. And then our memo down here where the no goods or services statement goes. So if I go back, I can go through and I can look at each of those. If I want to download a particular one, I can click on the download button. So, and I'll get a PDF, looks just like what we just saw when we viewed it. So once you're ready and everything's fine, you go up to the green Publish All button and then click. This now will publish all of your statements. And you'll see now that you'll have a green tag along each one. Again, you can go and view. Now, one of the things about this is once we publish it, it's now available to your givers. So let's go here and let me come into Mark Hunter. And he has statements. And you can see here is his statement. It's already available. He can view or print right here. And see, now he is seeing his statement live. This is actually his Engage account that we logged into. So this is his giving statement, and he is ready to print, download that statement as a PDF. And you can see there is his statement in PDF form. Now, let's log out of Marks. And let's go back to CDM Plus. So all of these are published. The next step that you'll want to do is, when you are ready, is you want to email them a notice saying that their giving statement is now available on their Engage site. And so you see that there's now a new action button here called email. Now, as I scroll down through this, you see that there are some of these email buttons that have a red exclamation point. These are donors who did not have the email statement checkbox checked. So if you wanted Alex and Abby Clay to receive an email for this, you would need to have to go back and change their donor record to receive email. But let's say we don't want to send that. So we're like, okay, everything looks good. Everybody who's supposed to get an email is set for an email. At that point, I can click email all published, or I can just email one person at a time. If you've got hundreds, you want to go and click email all published. At that point, you click yes. It's now emailed all of your donors. And so now all of our notices are out. Our donors have been notified that their online giving statements are available, and they can log in and see their statements. If we come here, let's say after we sent all of these out, we know that Mark Hunter has found a problem in his donations. And so you need to go back and make a correction that you weren't aware of before sending it. So what you can do is, there is an option here under his name. You can go in here and you can click on this action of retract. Now, what retracting does is it takes and makes that particular giving statement unavailable to him on his site. So if we go back into Engage and log in as Mark Hunter, now you see that he does not have a statement available to see. So what we have to do is we have to come back in here and we go back into CDM Plus. We make those changes in the donation records that he has requested or that you have verified that needs to be done. You come back into this area and you regenerate a statement. Now this is now unpublished, and you will need to publish that particular statement again. And so we click publish. And now that is published. And if we go back over into his record and refresh, he now has a statement available, and he can view and he can print it just like before. So with that, that is the end of the presentation.
Well, thank you all very much for coming. We certainly appreciate it. And we hope you have a great rest of your week.